How was the tour? We went a little bit long, but I'm sure that was insightful to kind of see some of those issues. So what I would like to do for the remainder of the time is I want to tell you just kind of my perspective on things and share some thoughts with you. I'd like to address some kind of like elephant in the room sort of conversations, just kind of address it head on. And I want to talk about some next steps, and just so we're all kind of on the same page, if that sounds good. And I have a bunch of questions I'd like to ask all of you to gather your input on City Hall. So, and then at the very end, I want to just do Q&A with everyone. So that's kind of the plan here. So coming here to the city of Hastings, for me, it was just apparent that, this is an obvious issue that needs to be addressed. It's not something that we can just put off any longer. And so I visited, basically with the assistance of the mayor, well, I don't know if we call it appointed because it wasn't official, but he made some recommendations for names that I could use for a committee. And then I'm leading the committee that we have to just kind of analyze ideas about City Hall, and then eventually develop some pros and cons. What was really interesting about this group of individuals that we have that are kind of talking about all this is that they don't agree with each other. They don't agree. So what they said is that, before we go any further, we need to get the residents' thoughts. And so that's why we're here today, is they said, don't go any further until you hear from the residents. So here we are. So I appreciate that. They're doing a good job, I feel. So we have what are, I would say, a few different options here. One is that we could just repair this building. I would say that's option number one. Option number two, we could remodel this building where we're going a little, and the cost that you probably heard before, there was a $9 million cost. I have those right in here for a remodel cost. Then there was a $9 million cost to move to the North Denver station. And then there was an $11 million cost, and this was all from architects' estimates to build new. And that was based on approximately, was it 22,000 square feet? So that's what that is. I'm going to throw out maybe one other option that I'm interested in looking at is if we were to maybe lower that square footage possibly, and see if we could get maybe some new estimates if we were to do another building that were less square footage. I just want to explore that. I'm just curious what that would be, because I know, like, we'll talk about the elephant in the room. One of them is the cost, right? Like when we're talking about $9 million, $11 million, that's a lot. So, could we maybe get something that would be less if we found some other estimates? I want to explore that option a little bit. So another just little housekeeping for everyone. We are going to be, of course, we'll be doing another one of these on Monday, and then we're going to send out a survey to get everyone's feedback. And some of the questions I'm going to ask today are coming directly from that survey. So it'll be interesting to see what all comes from that. And just so you know, the survey, as soon as we get those results, we will make them available to everyone. So there's no question about, well, what happened with that survey? This is a form of accountability, is that you can see what you've answered, right? And same with this, like we'll have a report of all of you coming here and what your responses are, what the discussion was like, so that the city council can hear that. And obviously we have a few here, which is great. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, okay, here's the other elephant in the room, right? Why has the city not maintained this building? That's the biggie, right? So let me just, and you all know that I've only been here 2 months, so I'll tell you what I'm thinking in the future, though. What I think we need to do is, if we had, say, this is just an example, but if we had a maintenance manager who, okay, let's say the city has 50 buildings. I know we have a lot of buildings. I don't know how many, but so the maintenance manager, and let's say we have 2 maintenance personnel under him. So that person is going to be in charge of, okay, on these 50 buildings in the next 2 years, these two we have to replace the roof, or on these buildings, it's coming up for the HVAC replacement. someone has to take that responsibility in order for this to not occur again, right? So that's what I'm thinking that we should do. I'm here, I can see some nods, right? So we absolutely need to take care of what we have. And so that's kind of my suggestion, you know, as I'm looking at my council members here, that's something I think we should strongly consider into the new fiscal year, that we look at that. We actually have two directors that is just kind of like an internal committee that's already looking at this right now, and they're collecting data of like what are all the maintenance needs across the city and how could we combine that. So I think that's been great. So this is going to be interesting to some of you, I think. This was to me, because I just found this out barely. So we don't have the title on this building, which is, do some of you know that? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? So we are working actively on getting the title, and there's a few ways to get that. We'll get it. It'll take a minute, but we'll get it. Yeah, it's kind of silly, isn't it? Okay, so now I have some questions that I would like to ask, and I want to get your input on, and this is kind of the survey questions. So the first one, and I'll do kind of like raise your hand if you could answer this question for me. It'll kind of help to get some streamlined answers. So how often do you visit City Hall is the first question. At least, so if you visit City Hall once a week, at least once a week, raise your hand. It's probably not too many, except for our employees might answer that one. Okay. How about 1 or 2 times per month? Raise your hand if you fall in that category. Okay, a few. Once every 2 or 3 months, raise your hand if that's you. Once or twice a year, you come to City Hall? Okay. And then, all right, so that kind of gives us an idea of the usage. You
include attending meetings?
Yeah, attending meetings or, yeah. Oh, okay, so I guess there's more, right, that attend the meetings. Okay. So, okay, here's some of the questions that I want to know from all of you. Raise your hand if you think that we need to have a building that is energy efficient. Probably. Yeah, probably, right? Okay, this is going to sound like a funny question, because it kind of is, but so raise your hand if you think that the city should adhere to adopted fire and building codes. Why not, right? It's like, why would we not? Okay, so that, I just want to do that in here because that helps us to know when we're looking at if it's like renovating this building, okay, it is unequivocally we're going to fix that, right? To me, that's a no-brainer. Okay, is the overall cost, raise your hands if the overall cost is like the biggest factor here for you, and like if you were able to make this decision on what we do, is the overall cost like the biggest factor for you? Not so much. Not so much. So, okay, that's interesting. Tell me about this council chambers and your perspective on this. Is this a good space, do you feel? I'm sure that there are some times where you need a bigger space, but overall, is this space sufficient? Yes? Okay. Okay, here's another funny one. Should we okay, and some of you may have some thoughts on this today because you just walked around, but Americans with Disability Act, raise your hand if you think we should be in compliance and leading the charge on American. Okay. Right, it's a funny question, right? Okay, how about if it's really important that we have low operation and maintenance costs, how important is that? Raise your hand if that's a priority for you.
Just preventative maintenance.
Preventative maintenance, yeah. Okay. How do you feel about parking is okay here? Is that a fair? Okay. This window right here, I know that there's some discussion about this is not safe in our day and age, that if, an angry person out there comes and they want to shoot through this window, I kind of feel, who feels like we should address this window, raise your hand, where maybe we build up a wall and we make it safer so people can't just, you know what I mean? Raise your hand if you think we should do that. Okay, so energy efficiency also. Yeah, I agree. I heard that during COVID we utilized a drive-up window. Did any of you use the drive-up window? You did? Okay. Would you like to see that sort of an option here at City Hall by raise of hand, or is it like, So kind of maybe a mixture, just because like most of the time probably y'all come for city council meetings or those, so maybe it's more important, of course, that the utilities building. How would it be important to, this is a question that's come up, for a developer that is working with the city, would it be important to have like a one-stop shop where, do we have any developers in the room? Anyone or in the past that's been a developer, done construction, or you have? Would it be important to have development services and engineering in the same spot for a developer, or is it, because I know they go back and forth quite a bit, but.
I don't think it's that important, but the thing is that the director is the location. I guess access to the director is one of the things that people really want to do, because you can send an employee out, who then gives something, like with you. If I really want to communicate, I want to talk to your secretary. I'm not going to tell her, because we may talk about things that only you and I talk about. The same way with people that are in development. They have ideas, they want to pass them by someone who's really ultimately going to make a decision. In other words, they may have staff that will give them input, which everyone does in whatever business you're in. You take information from staff. But they want to talk to someone that they're basically coming back to the same place to get the answer. And that's really important. Otherwise, you don't know to whom are you supposed to talk. And also, when you're a department head or a director, as you are, then that's your responsibility. And we expect that as a part of your job.
Yeah.
Not you send us off someplace else. We go here, we go there, we do. Pretty soon, we're so frustrated that we're saying, we're just going to go to farm.
Yeah. So, and I guess thank you for those comments. I guess my question is like, because I know that this has been a conversation before, is having certain staff here, like development services, like if they were over at the utilities building, is that preferable? Because then you're not like running back and forth, or, and there's any answer is okay. Not a priority as much. Okay. Okay, here's the next question for you. So how many of you, by raise of hand, feel like the current City Hall meets current needs? Raise your hand if you feel like it meets current needs. Okay, how about if it were repaired? Raise your hand if it meets the current needs. So does City Hall as it is today meet the current needs of residents? Raise your hand. Okay. Okay. Does it meet the future needs? Maybe, expanding a little bit. By raise of hand, do you feel like this building meets future needs likely? Well, I guess because I think that over time, I think that there will be more employees like a little bit at a time. But, I'm just looking like way out there in the future. Do you think this building kind of meets those needs? By raise of hands, do you feel like this building meets future needs, like generally? I know this is kind of like a hard question, but okay. So tell me, I'm going to open this up to just like location. I kind of get the feeling that most of us here are thinking like this is where you'd like to have City Hall. If it weren't here, would you be okay if it were like right in the parking lot over there? Do you want to? I'm going to open it up. So if you have a comment, I'm going to now. Let's just kind of open it up to discussion now and Q&A. So let me give this to you.
Well, I've got a customer from Omaha waiting for me, so I just want to make a couple comments. In the first place, there's been talk about the parking lot over here, and it's got a lot of use right now, and so to use that They wanted to put a library there at one time when I was on the BID. That parking lot needs to be used for a parking lot. This building is in the shape it's in right now because of lack of maintenance. There is none of us here that would have left water in our basement in our own homes, but yet someone was not a good steward for our tax dollars, and we have let this building deteriorate just like the overpass. And that's what's happened here, and that's why you see people that are very concerned, including me. I've saved 2 buildings downtown. One of them at First and Denver had weeds and trees growing on the roof. And I babysat it, and finally put a rubber roof on it, and Jackson's Car Corner building down there too. Both of those buildings could have been torn down. One built in 1917, the other one in 1953. My grandchildren and a lot of future people can use those buildings now because we saved them. I get on the roof, and I'm 77 years old, and I check my roof and make sure that I have a good roof. This building was scheduled for a roof almost 5 years ago, and it didn't happen. So that's why you see a lot of concern. It made me sick to walk around and see the damage that did not have to happen if they had dried up the problem they had on the east side. That doesn't have to happen. And we wouldn't do that with our own homes. So I really appreciate the mic. I've got to meet a guy and try to make a living here. But thank you for the time.
Yeah. Who else would like to, yeah, if you want to make a comment or anything. Oh.
I would second what he said.
Okay, okay.
I just have a comment. If you're looking at 9 million, we're looking at $300 to $400 a square foot. How can you put that much money per square foot into this building?
That's a good question. My understanding that it's not just like office space, because you have, you got this big room, that's part of it, and there's conference rooms, that's what kind of makes it bigger. But could we analyze maybe a little bit smaller space? Potentially.
Because you've got plenty of space. You could put elevator shafts outside this building, put them to all the floors, if it costs you $100,000 a floor, but you can do everything. You can attach things to a solid structure. And I just, obviously I'd rip out all the concrete around this structure and find out what you got, because until you know what you got and put clay in and pack it, you don't know what you got, and we're just going to put another stamp on things and postage stamp. It's just not going to fix it. And put a new roof on. You got a guy that started rubber roofings, Zimba's. They're right here in town. That should have had a rubber roof a long time ago, a new one.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is there any way we can get a breakdown of this cost to see where we're spending $9 million in this building? Yeah. Is there a blueprint? Is there drawings, those sort of things?
Yes, there is. I know that at one of the council meetings before I was here, there was, actually I have it right up here, that shows what that looks like and kind of refiguring spaces and different things. And in that 9 million, it was actually like to make ADA and everything just a lot better and user-friendly. This room would actually go on the east side of the building over there. So yeah, you have to, after this meeting, I'll provide this so that you can get a hold of it and you can look at it. Yes.
Yeah, that breakdown of what your plan is instead of just throwing a price at us.
Sure.
If you're
Yeah.
putting structures in a concrete building, this is a solid building. If you're going to start blowing holes and stuff, yeah, you're going to spend a lot of money. But
Yeah.
you can use this existing space and do those things that I think you'd have a lot of savings.
Gotcha. Yeah. Who else would like to make a comment? Okay. All right.
I guess what worries me is that if we tore this down and put up a new structure, what good's it gonna do? If we're not gonna take care of this one, they're not gonna take care of that one. Why waste the money?
Well, I will say from my perspective, we're going to take care of it.
Well, I hope maybe a change.
I just would like to say that any movement of the city facilities from downtown is a bad move. So the fact that it's here, whether it's across the street or wherever we decide to do, is one thing. But moving it from downtown just takes away from everything that we've been working on downtown for the last 30 years.
Okay.
My opinion is this is the perfect place for City Hall. Adequate parking, it's accessible to everybody, and it's here.
I think about the old Lincoln School, how it was condemned, and the Catholic folks bought it, repaired it, used it for a good many years. Then they sold it back to the city, and now as the police station, it was overhauled. That building could have been torn back down 30 years ago, and yet it's still standing, and it's solid, and it's very much useful to the city. Why would we do that again?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we just have to take care of what we got.
Other comments? Yes.
I hear a few different schools of thought. One is let's repair and restore what we have. One is let's rip it all out and remodel and move things all around. And then one, of course, is to tear down and build someplace else. If the 9 million, which is hard for people to swallow, is to completely revamp and gut everything and move all the rooms and everything around, boy, that's a hard pill to swallow when you can build a new one for 9. But on the other hand, we kind of feel like this is planned obsolescence, planned not taking care of things. And that seems to bother people who feel like, well, we have to take care of our house. Why didn't you take care of ours? And it makes you wonder if the people who sit up there need to allocate money towards that in the future. Anyway, I keep hearing people say, well, can't we fix up what we have? I hope that step of fix up what we have is a separate step from let's gut and remodel and replace everything.
Thank you. One thing I don't know the answer to yet is the actual dollar amount, because there are some unknowns to just repair this building. Let's just throw this example out that let's say it's like $4 million to do it all. I don't know. And if there were another option of building new where it was a smaller space, and I'm just making this up right now, okay? So don't hold me to these these numbers. So let's say a new build where it could still meet our needs was like $6 million. Would you put $4 million into repairing this building, or would you consider going with something that was new that was $6 million? Just curious.
It's a steel building. No, I'd take this over a steel building any day.
Yeah, right.
You're talking about comparing, you're talking about light structure,
Mm-hmm.
concrete, all the
Mm-hmm.
marble, and, yeah. And you were talking about, you want future expansion too, we're talking about 24,000 square feet here, and you might need for future expansion, you could have a smaller footprint. How's that gonna help?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The idea, the gentleman in the hat over here, what he said about keeping it downtown, very important to me.
Yes.
Very important that people in all these businesses that we try to help and encourage, very good that they have access, very good that we don't have to teach somebody who only goes there every 2 or 3 years, they have to drive up north and try to find it amongst a bunch of other buildings. I'll throw that out.
To reintegrate what Roy said about the improvements downtown, we have to remember that those improvements were made with taxpayers' dollars. Tax increment financing helped support, and thank God we had that available for the people who wanted to make the improvement. Nevertheless, the taxpayers have somewhere between $11 and $13 million now in those investments. And so if we're already investing the public's money in downtown, and thank God it's being done, because you can see the results. If tax increment financing, which this building is not available for, had been done, it probably wouldn't look like it is today.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to look over at staff for a second. Do you all want to share some thoughts that you might have that would be good for the group?
I would just share one thing, whatever.
I think you turn that on, actually.
I would share one thing. Whatever you do, keep in mind that we have to keep services going all the time. So we'd have to have a plan of what do you do with the people that's in here. And to do it kind of one floor at a time, might cost you a little bit more money. So that's one of my issues is how do we deal with the staff here? It might be that part of that decision is you're going to have to move them out for a while till you get the repairs or remodeling that's done. So somewhere in there's going to have to be some costs that's allocated to that. So just point that out. And then other thing, we didn't get a chance to go up on the roof. But, I've talked to some people that understand the roofs and so forth, but it's been leaking long enough that concrete deck up there, I'm not, as an engineer, I'm not going to tell you that roof is safe. There's enough holes in it. I've seen rusting underneath of it. That entire deck might need some help. But until we get the roof off, the membrane off, I can't inspect it. Once the membrane's off, now we're exposed to the elements. And that's not something that's going to happen overnight. And last time I did a roof job, I got the shingles off and it rained on me. So I can almost guarantee I can make it rain if I take the roof off. So anyway, so consider that there's other details that go with it, but that's our jobs. So, okay.
Kevin, or?
I guess just a couple of thoughts on the estimates, the $9 million, $11 million estimates. Those estimates from the architect are based on square footages. So, I mean, they're a very rough estimate based on that level of building. And that was based on what the thought was of who would go where at that time. So, at that time HR was scheduled to be down here. If they're going to stay at North Denver, say, maybe that area that needs remodeled is a lot smaller. So take those estimates with a grain of salt that was the snapshot in time, that was the thought of who would go where, and it's just purely based on square footage and a number per square foot. And that was the same with the new build. There wasn't a detail done of, this is what it's going to look like. It was just a box and comparing apples to apples on roughly the same square footage as what the remodel would be either here or North Denver. So again, to Shawn's point on a smaller, maybe right-sized building, if it was new, that may be a completely different number based on the square footage and who would actually be in there and what the thoughts are now versus a year and a half ago. So I don't know if that kind of clears up.
Olson, the thought would be $300 to $400 a square foot?
CMBA Architects out of Grand Island. So they were the one, and they've done a lot of work for the schools, and their remodels of all these last school buildings, and that was kind of just based off of what they had seen, similar type buildings at the time, and I'm sure they, as all of us, we're not going to use a number that's light, you're going to use a number that covers it, or you hope that covers it. So again, that was, a year and a half, 2 years ago, before all the stuff we've seen now with it's hard to get any type of materials depending if it's electrical or that. So, and price fluctuations are a thing compared to what they were then. So just a couple thoughts on that and what they were.
Do you have anything, Kevin?
Happy to answer any questions that people might have.
I would just like to point out, if I were looking at it as an investment or whatever, and there's needs for more square footage. You've got a parking lot out back that's, I'm assuming, would butt up against the building or put an elevator between it or whatever you need to do. It's space that could be used other than parking. You got a parking lot across the street, so.
Gotcha.
And again, I guess at that time that we did those, that was the idea to put the council chambers attached to the building right where that tunnel is now. So that would have been the additional, and again, based on who would have been here, and that's what kind of
I don't know how often this room gets
went
used.
that out.
There's a lot of square footage here in terms of usage. So if you did something like that and moved it over, you get all this square footage yet to adjust,
Yeah. Well, are there any other questions or pressing things? Yes, ma'am.
Just kind of wondered, what's the issue with this council chamber?
That window?
Other than what?
Other than window?
Pat,
Do you know the?
I think as
well,
far as what the new one was attached to the building in that rendition, it was just to get the space for the people that were going to be here. And once you make ADA restrooms, of course, that expands things. And the other part of the council chambers is the technology. You know, the IT system and speakers and mics, just to upgrade there, because we have had issues with that.
Okay. Any other thoughts from this group? Let me go over here.
I would say it's unfortunate where this building is at now, but I think it's important that we look to the future and ultimately what we want this building to be and be utilized for the future. Because if we're going to do something and we're going to spend the money, let's do it right and let's make it work for us long term, right? Like, let's not try and redo this now and just put Band-Aids basically on things and then not have it work for us in 20 or 30 years again. Let's do something that's going to serve us long term. I would agree that downtown seems to be the best place for this, and I'd hate to see it move anywhere else. But I think we have to keep in mind for the future. And also, as developers and people from outside the town come into this building, is this the impression we want them to have of Hastings? I mean, I think we need to be looking at the big picture here too. Like, it's, you know, we love the building, things like that, and we hate where it's at, but we have to move forward. And what does that look like?
Thank you for that comment. And I think that kind of goes back to, do we repair or do we remodel? Because the remodel would be kind of looking at the future. It would be making everything look better and updated. Is that what most people would like to see?
What do you call it? I mean, is it like our schools that have been remodeled or redone? I mean, you know, what they've done with the schools here, fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know what, I haven't really been in the school, so I can't answer that question, but.
I think a remodel would be something similar to that. It's more than
Using the same footprint.
yeah, it's more than just the cosmetic. It's more than just you're replacing carpet, you're repairing the roof. It's you're addressing all the issues.
So, okay, by raise of hand, would you, like, if we're looking long term, would you spend the extra money to, like, the long term, make this all look prettier again, and raise your hand for that? So not just the repair, but make it look nice for the, and do it right. Just do it right. Do it right all the way. So even if that means some more money, it would be do it right. Do it right. Okay. So you could potentially, I mean, hopefully it wouldn't be like a 9 million. Maybe it ends up being less. I don't know, but you're saying just go for it. Do it right. Okay. And long. Okay, so it would have to be a remodel to fix some things, but.
Well, you talked about how much is this space used. Well, until the current times, the school board met here, and then also the planning commission meets here. But all of those places, we now have really good facilities, which we found out at the library. Frankly, the library, as far as a meeting place, was much better as far as the public was concerned than here. We were all on the same level.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think security of the city council is an issue here with these windows. I suggest opening the drapes and putting a speaker outside. Let everybody watch. Have transparency. See what the council's doing.
Open up the windows. Are you teasing me right now a little bit? You got me a little nervous. Okay, so do it right. For current and future needs, do it right. And take maybe a really hard look at what that remodel means.
Do it like it would be your own home. If everybody's honest and says, this is what I would do. Nobody's going to do a patch job on a roof. If they can afford to put a new roof on, they're going to put a new roof. You need to put a new roof on.
Yeah.
You got people here that are very qualified. Get people back to work on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the schools are amazing.
Describe the schools, because I don't even know what they look like. So, have they been remodeled? They have. So it's like a nice new look, updated.
Additions, big additions.
They have done additions?
Yes.
Okay. I need to tour the schools. I'll tour the schools sometime now. So make it look nice and new, future use. We like the character, but the inside make it look good.
And that's one of the reasons we wanted to go with CMBA, is that they did work on the school and they do this type of work. And on the committee, I guess to point out, Trent Kelly is on the committee, who's in charge of the maintenance for the school. So
I'd see if they get more swing too.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I'd see if they get more swing because he coordinated
Okay.
that. Retired.
So if we take a hard look at like that 9 million one, maybe take a really hard look again and just see what do we really need, and then bring that sort of an option to council. It sounds like we would have the support here of this group. It's kind of what I'm seeing a lot of this. Okay. Cool.
We've got 24,000 square feet. So you put your own figure to it.
Yeah.
We can put our figure to it. You put your figure to it.
Yeah.
More than likely it's going to be more, but really, Christmas for $9 million.
It should be the toughest one.
I hear what you're saying. Okay. Yes, sir.
You're going to start in the basement first and work your way up.
Put a roof on it first.
Roof would probably be before the basement, I would think, because no one uses the basement. So, well, yeah, there's some things that like have to be done first before other things, right? Right. And it is true that if we do here, then we are going to have to move people for a time. We're going to have to, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what about the city auditorium? I'll just throw that out.
Oh, to move us over there?
Well, if you're going to need space, where are you going to go? My suggestion.
There is. I haven't heard that suggestion before. I've heard the Yost building.
You can take those wings and probably have office space just in the wings under those balconies. That'd be a lot of space.
I haven't thought about that one. Oh, okay. Thank you for the.
The county, the courthouse has done some remodeling over the years, and they still kept operating 24/7, and they just had people, different parts move, different things, and they're working on there. And I think it's about
Yeah.
So, it can be done, it's relocated, and, not send them off to Egypt or whatever.
Oh, come on. The fun spoiler. Okay. Anything else? I really appreciate this conversation. I didn't know where this was going to go, honestly, but I really appreciate your feedback. It's good.
I just learned this morning that this place used to be Royal Billiards
Royal.
Pool Hall before this bank was built on it. And Reds, Rackham Reds. Royal Billiards. So that's what we're talking about another foundation.
Okay, I had
a guy tell me the whole story.
Okay, I've got one more question. Like when I first came here and I saw the front of City Hall, is it ugly to some people, or is it just that front part? Is it ugly? Is that okay to say? Okay, the front of City Hall over here, like the facade, it kind of, to me, looks like it needs a fresh update, or is that just me? It needs, so maybe we could do that with it? Because visual...
Key lights and everything under the...
Okay. All right, well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I think we call that a day, but thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.